Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket's Thoughts YouTube channel. Today we will be talking about the organization and deployment of the French Infantry de Line. Chapter 1. History. In 1793, the new revolutionary government established the demi-brigade as a replacement for the regiment, which they saw as a royalist term. This was a simple name change, with the demi-brigade and the regiment having the same structure. And this was the normal denomination of the regimental unit until 1803, when Napoleon dissolved it and brought it back to the old term. During the Napoleonic Wars, there was 150 or so line regiments, and there was only about 50 or so during the 100 Days campaign, aka the Waterloo campaign. Chapter 2. Organization. Disclaimer. Numbers per regiment and the subsequent building blocks of said regiment vary due to casualties, lack of replacements, and location. The line regiment is broken down from top to bottom as follows. The regiment itself contained anywhere between 1,400 men to 4,000 men. These regiments would be broken up into battalions, which ranged in number from 2 to 4 being the most common, and a few regiments having 5 to 8 battalions. A battalion's strength is divided by the number of men in the regiment, meaning if we have a 2,500 man regiment, we have to divide that by 4 if we have 4 battalions in that regiment, say, and then each battalion is the equivalent of 625 men. Each battalion possessed a standard, a flag, with the first battalion being trusted with the regimental eagle. These battalions would be broken up into companies, of which there were 6. There were 3 types of companies. 4 of the companies, of the 6 that I just mentioned, would be made up of fusiliers, or just the center companies if you're going off the British model, I guess. These men are conscripts or volunteers, only receiving their first few weeks, months, or maybe a year or 2 of service. They were trusted with forming up the center, and when the flank companies got depleted through casualties or sickness, the most grizzled fusiliers, which was not a high bar, would be sent to fill the new spots. The aforementioned flank companies would be made up of voltigeurs and grenadiers. These types of units, however, all 3 of the companies, fusiliers, voltigeurs, and grenadiers, would be partially divvied up by height. It varied. Voltigeurs would typically be the shortest men, grenadiers being the tallest, and fusiliers being in the middle. And there were a number of reasons for this, but chiefly it is that the voltigeurs acted as skirmishers, meaning they were meant to quickly get behind cover and provide suppressive and harassing fire upon enemy troops. This could be other skirmishers or the enemy line infantry. This could also be artillery, or in some cases cavalry, depending on if the enemy wants to keep their cavalry so passively to the rear. Grenadiers were meant to act like a reliable, skilled, and veteran force of tall, imposing, and intimidating soldiers. However, they were not as distinguished as the Imperial Guard, but some grenadiers were promoted to the Imperial Guard when the Imperial Guard took casualties and needed replacements. Voltigeurs would be deployed in a scattered and long ways formation, basically just spreading out in front of the infantry, and then taking individual sniping shots at the enemy in front of them. They could also garrison houses or set up pickets, etc. It was, however, with their reduced height, what they made up for was that they were still considered elite. And generally, sometimes they would even be used as shock troops with the grenadiers if it came down to it. I won't get into too much detail on uniforms here, as I covered the Barden regulations, which are post-1812 uniforms, in another video, and I may cover the pre-1812 uniforms soon, but for now, the rule of thumb when trying to identify which is which, and this is kind of the only reliable thing I think you can use, because there was a lot of variation in these different company types, is fusiliers have no epaulets, grenadiers have red ones, and voltigeurs have varying yellow and green ones, where like the center of their epaulet might be green and the outside is yellow, or it's inverted, etc. Chapter 3. Tactics of the line infantry. The French during the Napoleonic period used a variety of tactics when deployed onto the field. The French line infantry during a battle, when they were formed up into a line, were formed 4 to 3 ranks deep, and sometimes 2 ranks, like during 1813 and 14, and had the front 2 ranks stand and fire, not crouch and fire. That was not French. The French didn't use that. The rear 2 or 1 ranks, or just no ranks, acted as a reserve. However, the primary formation of the infantry on the battlefield was a column, anywhere between 50 to 500 men wide, and anywhere between 400 and 1,400 men, not 1,400, that's 14,000, 14,000 men deep. The key purpose of this was to keep formation during an assault, and to intimidate the enemy into fleeing before the French would even have to form a line. Say the enemy didn't retreat. As I said, the men would then split up on both sides of the column and form a firing line. This would pour a torrential fire upon the enemy. If they did not flee then, the French would charge and break them finally. These columns, however, were perfect targets for artillery, which caused serious damage, carving 20 men deep holes in the formations as the men marched forward to their intended target. Chapter 4. Notable actions of the line infantry. Throughout the Napoleonic Wars, the men of the line infantry formed the backbone of all of Napoleon's conflicts. Without them, it would have been impossible for him to carve his path through all of Europe. All the regiments played important roles, but I will be covering two that stand out distinctly and showcase that despite not being renowned for bravery or courage and skill, they proved many times that they were capable of holding their own despite all the odds. Number 1. The 84th stand at Graz. The 84th Regiment of the Line was a seemingly normal and regular regiment until the night of the 25th of June, 1809, when, on the 14th of the same month, General Jean-Baptiste Bossier and his division, which included 2 battalions of the 84th, were put in charge of the siege of Graz-Schlossberg, which was a fortified citadel on a hill in the center of the city of Graz. This siege went on for some time before Field Marshal Ignaz Gyulai, if I pronounce that, my bad, I don't know Hungarian, what is that? I don't even know. And 14,000 men began a relief effort to free the city from its struggle with the French. The French, having retreated with what few troops they had, sent in 2 battalions of the 84th into the city as a rearguard. They promptly beat off a large Austrian outpost. These 1,200 men, under Colonel Jean Gambin, took 2 cannons and quickly fortified the St. Leonard Church and waited for the enemy's approach. When the 10,000 men under Gyulai began their assault almost not only captured the regiment's standard, but a sergeant succeeded in snatching it out of the enemy's grasp, but it did capture one of the 2 cannons. After 16 hours of fighting, Gambin took his remaining men and forced his way out of the encirclement, and met the relief column of Marshal Marmont's corps. Together, these men drove out the relief force and retook the city. The citadel fell soon after. The 84th took 275 casualties during the battle, while inflicting over 2,000 upon the enemy. Before the Battle of Wagram, only a few days after, Napoleon awarded 84 medals of the Legion d'Honneur to the 84th Regiment, and ordered their flag to be inscribed with the French word for 1 against 10. Number 2. The Victors of Rob. There isn't much to say about this one, or at least not a lot that I know to my knowledge, but on the 14th of June, the same day that the Siege of Graz began, Marshal Eugene's army of the south, which was really a Italian Frankish army that was mostly Italian troops, but that army, which included the 112th Regiment, began an assault against Archduke John's force at the city of Raab. Or at least I think it was a city, I don't necessarily remember. The 112th played a pivotal role in this battle by charging down a battery of 12-pounders, taking heavy casualties, but turning the fortunes of the battle, and allowed the French to nearly encircle the Austrian army. That's all for this video. If you'd like to support the channel, I want to reach 100 subscribers by the end of the year. If that's possible, I will say I will have to increase the quality of this media, but I hope that we can together, if you are one of, I think, the 30 people that actively are subscribed to the channel, if you'd like to join them, that'd be great. I think it's like 7% of my viewers are subscribed and the rest aren't. But other than that, I will be talking about the light infantry in the next video, so the légère. If you have any specific insights on that, please tell me in the comments. And maybe I'll reach out to you with my Discord username so that way we can talk about that. That's all for now. See you later. Before the French would even have time to form a line. Say the enemy didn't retreat, As I said, the men would have to